Welcome to A Course in Miracles in Practice. Today we are looking at a lesson that feels almost like a direct invitation. It's Lesson 327.
It is. The title is, I Need But Call and You Will Answer Me. When you call on God, you get an answer. But the key part, and what we'll be talking about, is that the answer is experiential.
And that's so important. It's not asking you, the listener, to just take our word for it, to have some kind of unsupported faith. The lesson itself is basically a challenge. It's saying, go on, test this for yourself.
Exactly. This isn't about theory. It's a practical, repeatable experiment for your own mind designed to build a trust that can actually last.
Before we jump in, we always want to remind you that you can be part of this conversation. You can email us at ACIM@theworldharmonyproject.org.
Or find us on social media at the World Harmony Project. It makes this so much more of a shared journey.
So as we always do, let's start by reading the text verbatim. This gives us the exact foundation before we explore how to apply it, in the middle of a chaotic day.
Let's just settle in and listen to the words.
I need but call, and you will answer me. I am not asked to take salvation on the basis of an unsupported faith, for God has promised he will hear my call and answer me himself. Let me but learn from my experience that this is true, and faith in him must surely come to me. This is the faith that will endure and take me farther and still farther on the road that leads to him, for thus I will be sure that he has not abandoned me and loves me still, awaiting but my call to give me all the help I need to come to him.
And here's the prayer for the lesson. Father, I thank you that your promises will never fail in my experience if I but test them out. Let me attempt, therefore, to try them and to judge them not. Your word is one with you. You give the means whereby conviction comes, and surety of your abiding love is gained at last.
I think what stands out to me right away and what makes this lesson so approachable is how it directly confronts that need for proof.
It's completely anti-blind faith, isn't it?
It is. It's for the pragmatist, for the person who says, look, I need to see for myself. The lesson's response is basically, great, go see for yourself.
And it changes how we even think about conviction. It's not something you try to have. It's not an act of will, like I'm going to believe this harder. Conviction is the result. It's what you're left with after you've run the experiment enough times and seen that it works.
That phrase, let me but learn from my experience that this is true, that's the whole method right there. Your own experience becomes the only authority you need. You're sort of a scientist of your own consciousness.
And that's how you build what the lesson calls the faith that will endure. It's not a faith based on what someone told you. It's built brick by brick with every small internal shift you notice when you call for help.
It also gets at that very deep, very human fear of being abandoned, that feeling of being totally alone when things get hard. This lesson says the love is still there. It's just waiting for your call. The call is the only thing required.
But that brings us to the tricky part, the practical difficulty. We talk about an answer, but the answer is often so subtle.
So subtle that the ego has a perfect opportunity to jump in and say, nothing happened.
Exactly. So let's take a real-world example. You're up against a deadline. Anxiety is through the roof. Your chest is tight. You remember this lesson. You pause and you call for help. Not for the deadline to vanish, but for peace.
And maybe, just maybe, your shoulders drop an inch. The frantic loop of thoughts in your head pauses for a single second. That tiny bit of relief is the answer.
It is the answer. But the ego's right there whispering, oh, that was nothing. You just took a breath. You did that yourself. Or it says, well, the deadline's still here, so that didn't work.
It either takes the credit or it moves the goalposts. It's a master at that. It insists the proof has to be external. The problem has to disappear.
But the Course is asking us to make this huge shift, to recognize that the miracle isn't the change in the world. It's the change in our mind. The peace is the outcome. The peace is the proof that the promise was fulfilled.
We're so trained to look for the lightning bolt, for the dramatic sign. We want the email to come through saying the project is canceled.
But the answer is almost always quieter. It's an internal correction. I think sometimes when we call and we still feel overwhelmed, it's not that the answer didn't come, it's that we're looking right past it.
We decided what the answer should look like ahead of time. And if it doesn't look like that, we dismiss it.
We might be looking for a set of instructions, turn left, say this to that person, but the answer is almost always just peace. It's the return to sanity.
So we're really learning a new skill here. The skill is recognizing the signs. Not big, flashy signs, but the tiny internal ones. A moment of clarity, a slight reduction of fear, the capacity to forgive when a second ago it felt impossible.
It is a skill. It builds with practice. The more you notice and value those small moments, the more you trust the process. If you're angry, the answer isn't that the other person apologizes. Eventually, you find the ability to see them differently and your anger is gone. That subtle shift isn't subtle anymore. It's this clear, undeniable voice. That's the answer.
Let's talk about when it's hardest to hear that voice. When the pain is just so loud, it drowns everything else out. I'm thinking about moments of really deep grief.
Yes. That's when this gets put to the ultimate test.
This year made this lesson very real for me. It was after the loss of my mother.
I remember that time. A loss like that is so profoundly disorienting.
It is, thank you. And for a while, my calling was misdirected. I wasn't calling on God, I was calling out to the world.
What do you mean by that?
I was looking for an external message from her, a sign, a dream, some kind of confirmation that the connection of love was still there even though her physical form was gone.
That's such a natural human response. The ego believes connection needs a physical form to be real.
And I searched for that sign, but it never came, not in the way I was looking for it. And I spent weeks in this state of overwhelming grief. I was crying all the time.
And the Course gives us a way to see that crying differently.
It does. I started to see that the pain itself, the crying, the searching, that was my call. It was my mind expressing its deep, deep need for love because it believed it was abandoned and alone.
We tend to see these emotions as weaknesses, as something to get over. But the Course reframes them as the most honest prayer you can offer. It's the ego screaming its pain, which is the call for love.
That's it, exactly. And when I recognized my pain was the call, I stopped looking for the external sign. I started turning inward instead, remembering the teaching that separation is an illusion, that the connection with her and with love itself is constant.
You had to accept that the tangible sign you wanted wasn't the answer you needed.
I did. I had to accept that the answer would be given to my mind, not to my eyes or my ears.
So what was the answer that came?
It was an undeniable, deep inner peace. The pain of missing her presence was still there, of course, but the suffering began to fall away.
The suffering that comes from the belief in separation.
Yes. The answer was this quiet knowledge that I wasn't alone, that the love is still intact, guaranteed by God. The shift itself, from desperation to a quiet acceptance. That was the answer. The lessening of the pain was the proof.
The experience was verifiable. That's the key. Your internal state changed.
That distinction between the pain of loss and the suffering of believing in separation is everything.
Your experience reminds me of my first encounter with death long before I found the Course when my grandmother died.
That's a very formative experience.
It was, and it left a deep imprint of fear on me. I had no framework for it other than total permanent loss. Devastation.
The fear of complete absence. It's terrifying when you believe the body is the source of the connection.
It is. I carried that belief for years, that real connection was entirely dependent on someone being physically present. It created so much anxiety about future loss.
And the Course completely reframes that. It shifts death from being an end to being a continuation of connection in a different form.
But you can't just intellectually force yourself to believe that. That inner knowledge that the lesson promises. It only comes when you truly call for it.
When you turn toward God instead of choosing to stay immersed in the story of grief, which the ego often does as a sign of loyalty.
Exactly. The human ache of missing someone's presence might remain for a while. But underneath it, there can be reliable peace that confirms the deeper truth.
And that peace is the subtle response we're learning to trust. It all begins by putting this promise to the test.
Which brings us back to the prayer at the end of the lesson.
Yeah.
It's so focused on that transition from hoping to knowing.
Let's look at it again. Father, I thank you that your promises will never fail in my experience if I but test them out.
The first thing that strikes me is the gratitude. It's not please show me proof. It's thank you for a system that works.
It assumes success. It frames the whole thing from a position of trust, acknowledging that the promise is already kept as long as we meet the one condition. We have to test it.
And then comes the instruction for how to test it. Let me attempt, therefore, to try them and to judge them not.
And that right there is where the real discipline is, the judge them not part.
Because the ego is an instant judge.
Yeah.
It's what it does. It wants immediate, dramatic, measurable results. You make the call, and if 5 seconds later the world hasn't changed.
The ego declares, failed experiment, this doesn't work, move on.
So that instruction, don't judge, is a request to stay open, to give the answer time to register, to allow that peace to filter in, even if it's quiet and doesn't solve the external problem.
The prayer is asking for the patients to accept the answer in the form it's actually given, as a shift in perception, rather than demanding it fit our expectations.
Judging the process shuts it down. It reinforces the belief that we're alone, making a call that no one hears.
By agreeing not to judge, we're creating the quiet space necessary for that surety of your abiding love to finally be felt. And surety isn't a belief, it's a certainty that comes from repeated personal verification.
There's a listener question here that I think captures a doubt many people feel.
Let's hear it.
The listener asks, I have a hard time with the calling on God part. I don't feel like I get a response. Maybe I'm not calling right.
That is such a common fear, this idea of doing spirituality wrong.
We're conditioned to think prayer needs special words or a certain posture or a specific emotional state.
And this lesson and the course as a whole just sweeps that all away. If you're worried you're not calling right, let us put that fear to rest.
There are no special words required.
None at all. The only thing the course asks for is a little willingness, a moment of simple honesty. Your call can be a sigh of frustration. It can be the thought, I don't know what to do here.
I need help.
That's it. That sincere admission, however clumsy it feels, is more than enough.
There's a line in the course that speaks directly to this. It says, it is possible to listen to God's voice all through the day without interrupting your regular activities in any way.
And then the crucial part, the part of your mind in which truth abides, is in constant communication with God, whether you are aware of it or not.
So that reframes everything. The problem is never the transmission. The communication from God's voice, from the Holy Spirit, is constant.
The difficulty is always on the receiving end. Our minds are just so full of static, the judgments, the worries, the plans, the grievances. It's all noise that drowns out the signal.
So the act of calling isn't so much about sending a message out to some distant place. It's about intentionally turning down the volume on our own internal noise, just for a second, to hear the message that's already there.
When the ego is running wild, it's almost impossible to notice that pull back toward peace.
And the ego's job is to keep us focused on that noise. It wants us to analyze and project and worry. It will use the belief that you're not doing it right as one more way to keep you from peace.
Think about a simple, practical example. You're trying to make a small decision, and your mind is just spinning, going back and forth. Analysis paralysis. You're getting frustrated.
That frustration is the toll.
Exactly. So you stop for 30 seconds, you close your eyes, and you mentally hand it over. You say, I'm not going to decide this myself.
And the answer you get isn't a booming voice from the clouds.
No. The answer is often just a feeling of lightness, or one of the options suddenly feels a little smoother, a little more peaceful without any grand reason why.
That moment of relief, however small it is, that's the verifiable experience. That's the answer.
It confirms that the underlying fear of making the wrong choice has been corrected. Even the smallest bit of relief is a sign your call was heard.
And by noticing those small moments, you build the trust, the muscle memory. When you see it work with a small decision or a minor irritation with a family member, you begin to trust it for the bigger things.
It changes your metric for success. Success isn't that the external world changed. Success is that you received the internal correction.
And this lesson, 327, comes so late in the workbook for a reason. By this point, we've done the work to clear away at least some of the mental clutter.
We're no longer just practicing a theory. We're at the stage of confirming our own accumulated experience.
Let's summarize the takeaways from our look at Lesson 327. The main point is that the answer you receive is something you feel, something you experience.
It's not external or magical. It's the quiet, profound peace that comes when you remember the connection that's always available to you.
And faith grows from testing these promises in your own life. You don't have to force yourself to believe. You just have to make the call, stay open, and notice the internal shift.
That process is what guarantees that surety of love is gained at last.
So we encourage you to test this promise today. In whatever small moment of frustration you might face, the answer is right there, awaiting your simple call.
And we would love to hear about your experiences with this lesson. You can email us at acim@theworldharmonyproject.org or find us on social media at The World Harmony Project and share your reflections.
For anyone interested in the production details of the show, that information is always available in our pinned posts on TikTok.
Thank you for practicing with us today and for confirming the constant, steady presence of love's answer.
We hope you'll join us for our next look at the workbook with Lesson 328 as we continue this journey home. But before we go, consider this. If the voice for God is constantly speaking in your mind and the answer is always available, what persistent egoic lie are you choosing to believe right now that prevents you from hearing it? Just identify that one specific lie and simply offer the thought of it for correction.